Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Megan Hardy, and today I am joined by a very special guest. I can barely say this without smiling really big. Mr. Justin Hardy, my very own husband, who is closing the door right now, if you're watching on YouTube. And today, Justin and I are going to be sharing our birth story. So, hello, Justin. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Megan. Wife, how are you?
Okay, so Justin, as I always start these, if I'm interviewing someone, I always have them tell our guests about themselves. So if you would just tell everyone a little bit about you.
All right. My name is Justin. I'm 38 years old, uh, from Richmond, Virginia, where I met my wife at the gym, where I told her she had good depth in her squat, and then history. Um, I like to work out. I like hiking. I don't know. I don't know what you want me to say here. Like,
So I prefaced him barely before we started recording. I was like, I'm gonna ask you about yourself. Okay, let's record. That's good. That's
you
great
didn't ask
information.
me. You didn't say that was coming. Thank you very much.
Well, literally right before we start recording. Anyway, so this is gonna be a fun episode. So why I'm sharing our birth story. First of all, the whole podcast is, as you guys know who have been listening for a while, like all about not only our physical fitness, but mental, emotional, and spiritual fitness too. And I have shared a lot of my journey with our miscarriage and loss and with our pregnancy and my fitness along all those things and that whole journey. So, you guys have been somewhat invested, some of you guys on social media. And so I'm sharing this because some of you who follow me expressed interest and asked for the details. I literally posted on my stories like, I think I might need to make a podcast episode about the birth story because it's too much to share here. And several of you were like, yeah, I actually want to know the details. So that's why I'm recording this. And then, secondly, I think it's just a super important discussion because I had several people ask if I think, quote unquote, working out too hard is what caused me to have a preemie. Because as you guys will find out in this episode, Ryder, our baby, was born at 26 weeks and 2 days. And I literally have had one person who commented on a reel asking this, and one person, and then several people who DM'd me asking, like, do you think it's because you were working out, quote unquote, too hard or something along those lines? And I can boldly and passionately say, no, I do not think that is the reason. And my doctors don't either. And we don't know why Ryder was born at 26 weeks and 2 days gestational age, but there's a lot of factors that could have played into that. And I can say with complete confidence that working out did not cause this to happen. We have been told for so long that women shouldn't lift over 30 pounds while pregnant. So many women live in fear of working out or even hardly lifting a finger when they're pregnant. And there is zero research or evidence to back that up. For instance, many of you listening have are parents of multiple children, and your kids probably weigh more than 30 pounds, right? So I don't know where that came from, but it creates a lot of fear. And if anything, working out, as long as you don't have any pre-existing contraindications or concerns, has actually been shown to have positive outcomes for both mom and baby. And working out, quote unquote, hard or working out, quote unquote, heavy is relative to the person. So what might be hard or look hard to someone like that I'm doing may not actually be that hard for me, even though it looks hard to them. So, with that being said, my story, if you want to believe that working out is the reason that there's miscarriages or preemies and those kind of things, my story could be, what's the word or the thing I'm thinking of, Justin, where like supporting that belief. Like it could make you think like, oh, yep, it's because she was working out if you already believe that, but it's just not the truth. So that's why I also wanted to share this story, share a little bit more about the details of our birth, because I would hate for someone to come follow along my journey and be like, oh my gosh, she's a case in point of why I shouldn't work out while I'm pregnant, because it's just not true. There were so many other things that played into our birth story. So, anyway, super quick backstory with that. We tried for a year. Before we got pregnant with our first Kai, we lost Kai at 12 weeks. We had a missed miscarriage. All of a sudden, at his 12-week appointment, he was like 12 weeks and 2 days or something like that, and he had no heartbeat. That was a pretty like hard pregnancy all throughout. I did modify my workouts a lot more for that one because it was just a challenging pregnancy. But we had a miscarriage, no explanation, no idea why. The doctors were like, this is when our job really sucks because we have no answers for you. And I had a DNC in June of 2024. And then we got pregnant again in November of 2024. We also moved from Virginia to Utah when I was 5 weeks pregnant. And we also did that with a 2.5-year-old dog and a 16-week-old puppy. So that was fun. And we didn't have any friends or family out here in Utah. We just made the move. Somehow we have persuaded my whole family to move out here. My sister and her family just recently moved here, and my mom and dad and brother will be moving in the fall. So that's amazing. We will now have our tribe out here with us too. But so that's kind of a backstory to, okay, our birth story with Ryder. And I want to go ahead and share one other piece of information before I let Justin kind of take the floor. And I also have a bicornuate uterus. So that is one thing that before getting pregnant, this was something that was on our minds or we were aware of. I have a bicornuate uterus, which basically is like in the shape of a heart. So it sounds cute, but in reality, it can create complications. So my uterus has a septum or a piece of tissue that comes down in the middle that makes it turn into a heart shape where there's two quote unquote horns. So they call one side of the heart one horn, and then the other side is the other horn. And so it depends on where the baby implants. They might just be growing in one side of your uterus. So we knew this prior to getting pregnant the first time. And we knew that it can create complications like baby running out of space or the placenta implanting in a bad spot. There's actually not as much blood flow to that tissue that runs down the center. So if your placenta like implants there or grows there, then they cannot have enough blood flow or oxygen for the baby, and that can lead to miscarriages, things like that. So you're at higher risk of miscarriage, but many women have this uterus shape and have perfectly healthy pregnancies and never even know that they have this type of uterus. So, with that being said, yes, could that have been a culprit in our story? Maybe, but we still don't know to this day. So, with that being said, all that backstory, Justin, if you would just kind of let's jump to our the day that we had Ryder and our birth story and jump into that.
Sure. Just something about the 10 to 12 months it took to get pregnant the first time. I always joke about how when you're in middle school and you're in sex education, they make you so afraid of how easy to get a woman pregnant, and it is not that easy. As we have experienced and a lot of other friends and others have experienced. So
Mm-hmm.
it is not that easy. I remember having my swimmers tested, and that was stressful. But yeah,
And then you were very glad when it came back that your swimmers were just fine. So,
yeah, yeah. I think what's funny, just a lot of things are funny about God's plans compared to our plans, and we had quite a few reminders of who is in control versus us. And the plan was always to move out west. We got pregnant with Kai. We shut down the plan because our family was in Richmond. We weren't going to leave help. Then we lose Kai literally 12 months last year. And we sign a lease in Utah. And then a month later, right before we leave, we get pregnant. And then we're moving to a place without help. So it's just funny how that works. But this this second pregnancy was obviously a lot of faith and fear battles again. And especially for me, once you started feeling him, because I would always go back and forth on asking you if you felt him today or not, or whatever, because if you didn't, I didn't want to put pressure or stress on you because now you're stressing or worried about it. But it was always in the back of my mind. So, when we'd wake up, you're getting ready for the gym, taking forever because you want to play with and love on the dogs, and we're always late and not on my schedule. But you always felt him then. on the way to the gym because it was a 25-minute drive, you felt him. At the gym, you felt him. Coming home, you felt him. All throughout the day, you felt him. But, for I think you started feeling him around 17 or 18 weeks consistently. So this was
Hmm.
week 26. So it was day after day, week after week, consistent movement. And then that morning, we get up, we're headed to the gym. You haven't said you felt him yet. I think I asked you on the way. You said you hadn't. So I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, this is like 2, 3 hours into the day. And obviously, after you have a loss, a traumatic loss, they're all traumatic, but for us, it was just a lot of blood throughout that pregnancy. So that's why I say it's traumatic. Any loss is tragic and terrible. But
Hmm.
once you go through that, that's all. It's always in the back of your mind. So those first couple hours,
Hmm.
you haven't felt him. Like, all right. So we're up at 6, 9 o'clock. You haven't felt him during the workout. I ask you, you haven't felt him. We're leaving the gym. You haven't felt him. We get home. Nothing. This is, now it's, well, actually, no, I get home because you went to Momco.
Yeah, so
We,
I had a mom community group meeting at my church. It was the second one I'd gone to, and so that morning I was literally actually okay. Let's rewind. So we're gonna be real raw here. Actually, I shouldn't have used that adjective. Um, so the night before, okay, so if we want to relate this to anything, the night before we did have sex, and that is actually when I think contractions started for me. Now in hindsight, realizing this, my stomach started to hurt, but I just went to bed, went to sleep. Woke up, my stomach and abdomen still hurting, and thought it was Braxton Hicks contractions. I was like, I know that's very common. And especially as a first time mom, even when you're later in your pregnancy and you're not actually in labor yet, you often have Braxton Hicks, and people think, oh, I got to go to the labor and delivery and they're not due yet, whatever. So I was like, okay, it's probably just Braxton Hicks. And I like just totally gaslit myself to think that. And also who like, if we wanted to blame something, I'm like, well, there's like definitely a correlation between having sex and then the contractions starting. I did not ever have a workout where I felt any kind of pain, any kind of contractions, anything like that. So anyway, if we want to blame something, let's blame that. But then I started having the contractions, and then plus in addition to that was not feeling him all morning. But like Justin said, we went to the gym. I was literally having to rest in between my contractions, which again I did not realize at the time were contractions. So I was just like, oh, okay, the pain is gone. Okay, let me just finish out my set. And then I'd be like, oh, my stomach hurts again. Let me sit down, and then would keep going. And then I actually vividly remember laying because I was doing bench press that day, and I remember laying back and um, tearing up some, and I like just looked at you because I was like, I still don't feel him, and like we both just kind of had that mutual like exchange because I was like, I'm like, I'm sure it's fine, I'm sure he's fine, I just like still don't feel him. Um, and then anyway, I had the mom co group afterwards, and Justin's like, you were like, are you still gonna go? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll feel him while I'm there because I'll be sitting more. So versus like moving about. Because if I ever wondered whether or not I could feel him, I'm like, as long as I would at least just sit down and put my hands on my belly and not move around, I could feel him immediately. So I was like, I'm sure I will when I go. And I sit down for like an hour. Um, but anyway, so I get there, still nothing, and then I come back home, and it's like what, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
it's like 1:30, and I told you to text me if you had felt him, and you didn't text me. And so that's like those hours from 10 to 1. I was in meetings, but that was all that I was thinking about, and you didn't text me. And then yeah, you got home about 1:30, I think. Yeah.
And
And
then so then that's when I was like, okay, let me just go lay down. So I think you were on a call or something. I don't know where you were, what you were doing. But anyway, so I went and just laid down on the bed, and laid on my side. I was drinking plenty of water, just trying to do the things. I was like, okay. And I still hadn't felt him. And so I was told Justin that. And what
well,
was
before
your
that, I
advice?
was on a call, and I was with one of my good coworkers, good friends. And he like stops and he says, "Hey, I can tell I'm boring you. If you don't want to hear this, talk about this right now, like we can just get off the call. And I was like, it's not you, man. I'm just worrying about our son who Megan hasn't felt for all morning, So I got off that call and then I came in the bedroom and you still hadn't felt him. And I said, why don't you call? Or why don't we go? And you called, and then they told you what?
Yeah. So then I called. He was like, Megan, you need to call the hospital, like, or you need to call your OB and like talk to them. So I was like, okay. So I talk with a nurse there and, told her, I was like, I think I might be having contractions, but I'm like, they've kind of been off and on, nothing like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I was like, but I haven't felt him since whatever time yesterday. And she was like, well, she was like, I'm kind of surprised. So first, her first response was like, well, it's amazing that if you feel him a lot, like at 26 weeks, that's still pretty early on. And I was like, yeah, I was like, but for me, like he was a mover and groover. Like he moves a ton every day. Like I've been feeling him very consistently since like 17 or 18 weeks. And she was like, okay. She's like, well, my advice has to be if you're having rhythmic contractions and you have noticed decreased fetal movement, then I need to suggest that you come in for evaluation in labor and delivery. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, and I'm still like gaslighting myself a little bit. I'm like, well, I don't know that I'd call them like rhythmic contractions. I was like, I don't know. I haven't timed them. Should I time them? And she was like, yeah, I mean, you could time them. She's like, but I would, if especially with the decreased fetal movement, that's cause for concern. So she's like, I would probably go get evaluated. I was like, okay. So I get off the phone and then I'm like, Justin comes in and I tell him, and I'm like, should we just wait a little bit longer while I time them? Like while I time the contractions just to see like if it's actually, I don't know, something of significance. Like, I don't know. And you were like, why would we wait?
No. But you needed to eat something first before we went. And I still had to talk you into going because you didn't want to go. And I said, in my head, I'm like, what's the downside of going? What is any negative that could come out of going to get checked out? And we
Mm.
were going to hit the insurance deductible anyway, so we can just get there quicker, was in my head. And I think also like when you first came in the gym the first day in 2015, something told me to talk to you, and I wasn't close in a relationship with God then, but now I realize that was. And then and then in those moments, it was definitely God telling me, like, Holy Spirit, like, you need to go, you need to go, you need to go. So I
Mhm.
dragged you out of the house and we went to the hospital.
Well, and that's something like actually all of our blessed NICU nurses, if anyone listens to this, we love you guys. But anyway, so many people in labor and delivery and in the NICU have just said like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you listened to your body. I'm so glad you were in tune with your body and you
Husband.
came." Yeah. And as I've given you massive credit. You've heard me say it over and over again. I'm like, well, yes, I did listen to my body, but it was a triple effort of me being aware of my body, which if anything, you guys, I would contribute a lot of that to working out. And the more you work out and the more you're aware of your body, the more you'll notice those subtle changes. But anyway, and then also massive credit or whatever you want to say to my husband for really being the leader in that and like pushing me to go. Because if anything, ladies listening to this, and like we gaslight ourselves, or like, especially as a new mom, like, or, first time delivering mom, you don't want to be the silly one showing up thinking like, they're just going to send me away. But every NICU nurse and every nurse I've talked with has been like, there's no harm. They were like, yes, 9 out of 10 times a mom comes, there's nothing wrong, or we give them some fluids or something and they go home. But then you're the 1 out of 10 that comes, and literally it was life or death for your baby. So
Which is
always
funny you mention
come.
that. I didn't mention this to you. This like a couple days ago, I was walking in and there was this mom. She looked pretty pregnant. I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, but she was pretty far along. And she looked distressed and she couldn't tell, she didn't know where she was going. And I was like, do you need some help? And she's like, yeah, I'm trying to find labor and delivery. So, which is obviously right beside the NICU ward. And so she goes in, and then actually later in the day, I saw her walking out because she was going in to get checked on, and I said, "Is everything okay?" And she's like, "Yep." And so like she was one of the situations where she was alerted to something, and everything was fine, but that was
Mhm.
not the case for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, yeah, 9 out of 10 times. It may not be maybe a false alarm, but it never hurts to go. So that'd be one takeaway from this episode is if you're pregnant, go get checked if you have any concern. But yeah, and then the third thing and the most important thing I think for both of us was definitely a prompting from we're both people of faith and like definitely believe that God really prompted us to go and get Ryder checked. And even with the move here to Utah, both of us I have no doubt in our minds that we were meant to be here when Ryder came early to be at this specific NICU. And the care team that he has is phenomenal. If we have to leave our baby every night somewhere that's not our home and not with us, like we are so grateful that we have this NICU team. And yeah, so it's definitely, you could call all these things coincidence, but I don't think they are. So yeah, anyway, so you can continue the story.
Sure, no. So, well, what's crazy too is we get there, it's a controlled door, double door that you have to call to get entry into, and we said, hey, we just want to get a checkup, and we immediately went into a room, and they get Megan hooked up to a contraction monitor and his heart rate monitor, and so they're monitoring those two things. Well, even before that, like, she used the Doppler, didn't she?
I think so. This
And
is where you're going to have to probably share the most. I
she
told
used the
Justin,
Doppler, but well, because even before we got the heart rate, that was the initial scare. That was the initial deja. It was very deja vu like making that drive because it was a little different but similar. Before, when we lost Kai that day for the ultrasound, you had been bleeding at a crazy rate. So you're kind I mean, I was kind of like, this can't be good. Versus, okay, there's not as many present signs, physical signs, blood wise, other than, you can't, you couldn't feel him. And so it took her a second. And so we're holding our breath while she finds his heart rate. She finds his heart rate. So we're like, okay, that's good. He's there. So then they're monitoring your contractions, and you can see when the contraction starts, and you can see his heart rate start to drop, which is expected because the body is tensing up, it's stressing him out. That's expected. But what was happening as soon as the contraction ended was his heart rate would tank. And it did that for basically every contraction. They monitored, those first 10 or 15 minutes, and the nurse is like, I don't, there's two things that we don't typically like to see. We don't like to see, we expect the heart rate to tank, or not tank, but drop during the contraction and then come back up when the contraction ends. His was going down, and his heart rate was struggling to stay between the 110 to 160 beats per minute, which is just wild that their heart rate moves that quickly compared to ours, which we typically want in that 50 to 70 range depending on your heart strength and your heart health. But so the two things they didn't like, and they told us, this is likely dehydration. We're going to get you hooked up to an IV, which getting Megan hooked up to an IV is a challenge,
Mhm.
despite how much she works out.
Yeah,
She
they love my veins for finding them for drawing blood, but my veins do not want to receive an IV, so they had to prick me. They had like four or five different nurses
four
try.
nurses, because they each get two attempts. First
Yeah.
three were not successful with each of their two attempts. So that's stressful while that's going on. But in my head, I'm like, Megan drinks quite a bit of water, probably more than 95% with her big Stanley cup. I
I was
can't,
just about to say, as I literally drink from us, I
she's
just bought a Stanley
officially
Cup today,
basic.
you guys. Yeah,
She,
now I'm a
she,
basic white girl, but because I was using my hospital cup for since I've been out of the hospital, I've still because it's just so helpful to make sure I drink a lot of water. but it spills over all the time. So anyway, I have now gone basic and I have a Stanley. But anyway,
Next, she's gonna get pumpkin spice lattes.
yeah.
Um, so it's like 30, 45 minutes of trying to get this IV in. And all the while, his heart rate, probably 3 or 4 times in that first 45 minutes, would tank to 90, start dinging. Nurse comes in. If she's laying on her left side, she rolls her to her right side. His heart rate comes back up 3 or 4 times. The attending doctor comes uh, in the middle of those and is like, okay, he reiterates the two things he doesn't like. He doesn't like the low heart rate. He doesn't like the contraction ending and the heart rate tanking. He wants to see that rise, obviously. And so he said, we're going to get this IV in you, but uh, I want to give you a shot, a steroid shot in the event we have to get him out. I want to keep you overnight. If all goes well, the steroid shot will have been just a precaution. The IV will make you healthy, or will bring him back up, and you'll be fine, and we can discharge you in the morning. And when he said that, for me, all I could think about was, so you're gonna send us home after this kind of scare. Now I have to worry about it for the next 14 weeks and not know what's going on. I know you got a pump. Uh, but so he's like, we'll reassess. He didn't want to say we're gonna have to get this baby out yet, but that's what he was saying if things didn't change. And that's when it became pretty real for me, that I was like, that is an outcome. And I was going back and forth in my head of thinking, is that the better outcome selfishly for me and for us, like, so we don't have to worry about it for the next 14 weeks? Because I imagine I mean, pregnancy when you haven't had a loss seems slow. It's even slower after you've had a loss and
Yeah.
you're trying to get to 40 weeks. It just drags.
Yeah. And I
But
remember, so from just to insert really quick for that part of the story, I remember when that attending doctor came in. And actually I have to share this because it's funny. Because we couldn't remember his name at first and it's Dr. Watapi, but we were referring to him as Dr. Wasabi. But
you
any
said it was wasabi. I
Oh,
knew
I
his
said it
name
was
was
Dr.
wasabi.
Wasabi. Anyway, I was like, I couldn't remember. But anyway, he was what I remember him saying was, and I really appreciate it because they're super straightforward, and that's something I've really appreciated from everyone is not sugarcoating things, especially in the NICU too. They don't sugarcoat in there and really shoot it straight to us. But anyway, he was like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't like the way things look, and we'll keep you overnight for evaluation and monitoring. We'll pump some fluids, blah blah, but we might have to move to a plan B sooner, and we might have to get this baby out sooner. So I was just like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. Oh, right. And like I'm just trying to process in my brain. And they leave the room and I'm like turned over on my side. Justin, you scooted your chair around to the opposite side that they had me facing. And that's when I remember just like fear really hitting me. And you came around to just hold my hand and like my eyes just filled up with tears because I was scared. And I told you that. Because I was like, I'm just really scared. And because it was just finally dawned, I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I really like, is this happening right now? Or could this happen? I'm like scared. I was scared multiple ways because I was like, I'm scared of having to have a C-section right now. I'm scared of him dying before we can get to him. Like, I was just scared. So like that happened. And then it felt like to me, all of this is like very jumbled because it just all happened so fast. But I don't actually know how long after that was it that things escalated.
Probably 25 minutes. I mean, over the this 90 minutes, he he didn't Brady, which is when the his heart rate drops below 80.
I don't remember.
70, some it's just not just I can't remember. He's done it enough in the NICU, you'd think I would know it by now. But it was just constant. And eventually he left. IV bag is about halfway through. His heart rate still isn't really improving. Oh, the other thing, that's what I got it wrong. It wasn't that it was low. They wanted to see the range. They wanted to see his heart rate bounce. They expect the heart rate to go
Mhm.
110, 130, 120, 140, 150, 160, 140. Like they want to see it bounce all around, and his was steady. And they had told us that that likely indicates he's under duress. And so when they said that, that was also becoming very real. But anyways, eventually, after the seventh or eighth time, his heart rate tanked. Um,
And when he says tanked, it was like what? Like it was like in the
70.
130.
The last two times, second to last time, it drops to like 70 before the nurse comes in. Then, obviously she's paying attention out there. She comes in, rearranges Megan, it comes up.
Yeah, because I'll have so I have a contraction, I'm feeling it, and then Ryder's heart rate, we're just watching the monitor and we see it's like 130, 120, 110, 100,
Yeah.
80, 70, and then someone comes in and flips me over and it like revives and comes back. And it did that multiple times.
And those monitors are like a gift and a curse because at that point, all you're doing is staring at the number. And
Mhm.
so it's agony just watching it drop. But anyways, I don't even know, seventh or eighth time it happens. And within 30 seconds of that happening, well, actually, even before that, right before that, the nurse comes in to put the shot in Megan, the steroid shot. And as soon as she gets the shot in, that's when his heart rate tanked again. And six nurses were in there, the anesthesiologists were in there. And I'm like backed into the corner of this wall and like trying to get out of this team's way. And one of the nurses was like, "We have to get this baby out now.
Mhm.
He's coming out now." And at that point, it was just chaos. And then you asked where I was.
Yeah. So, well, one, the steroid shot. So, for anyone who doesn't know, they can give you a steroid shot or give mom a steroid shot to hopefully help the baby's lung development progress faster if they think they're going to have to get it out sooner than they would like or sooner than, full term. And so they did that preemptively, thinking that they would monitor me overnight and again that they might have to do it sooner rather than later, but that the steroid giving me the steroid would help Ryder in the long run. And like Justin said, literally he has timestamps of texting my mom updates, and he texted her like she's getting a steroid shot now, and then he's like they're bringing her off to the OR, she's going to have to get a C-section, and literally between those two texts was like 4 minutes, I think, right? Like 4 minutes between those two.
So, that was like the big the range I remember is I texted her as soon as they all ascended, descended, whatever the word is, and into the room. And they're getting you hooked up. They're trying to get a line to so they can get the anesthesia going, all of that. And then they wheel you off, and they get me to scrub up because the hope was I could be in the operating room with you if his heart rate recovered so they could go local for the emergency C-section versus having to go general anesthesia. And so I'm like sitting right outside that red line in the operating room hallway where you can't go past unless you're, authorized personnel and in an all white scrubbed up suit waiting to get the nod if I can come in or not. And a couple minutes later, the nurse comes down and is like, unfortunately, he's just not stable enough. Uh, we're gonna have to do general anesthesia. And uh, at that point, like I wasn't, I hadn't, I didn't have as much fear about him surviving in the C-section because I'm like, oh, his heart rate will be fine. They'll get him out quick and then the battle begins. But when they wouldn't couldn't do local, I realized, okay, this is he's still struggling. I don't know if he's gonna uh get out of there breathing. And I wasn't necessarily concerned with your physical. Like I wasn't like, oh, Megan's gonna die or anything. I was just I think I was scared for him. I was scared for you because we had this natural birth plan. That day, that Thursday, was the eighth and final week of a natural birthing class, which is just hilarious because we
Yeah.
had someone else's birth plan. Uh, and we couldn't do delayed cord clamp because the anesthesia could have been passed to him the longer he was attached to you, which stunk. Couldn't do golden hour, whole skin to skin immediately that first hour of birth. Um, but from the time that team was in the room to the time a nurse walked out of the operating room with this screaming little tiny child was like 19 minutes, I think. It was insane. And she walks by me and he's screaming and he is just insanely small. And they like take him into this, it looks like it's basically like a prep room where they've got a NICU bed and they're getting him getting all the tubes hooked up into him, getting his breathing set up. And they're like, you can come in here if you want, you can be in here and watch and be close to him. And I'm like, I don't want to do that because all these noises are going off and I don't know how to interpret these noises. So if you could just close the door and give me updates, that would be preferred. And they did.
See, it's so funny because Bree, so one of our nurses in the NICU, shout out to Bree, but her and I were talking about this and how different you and I are, and just how different people are in general. Because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't look, I can't watch, it's too stressful. I'm like, I have to be in there. I want to see this. If anything goes good or bad or indifferent, like I want to see it and be in there. So just it's just interesting how different people handle traumatic uh, situations, but. Because I was like, I
Yeah.
was like, wait, you weren't in there, and you're like, no, I couldn't. Like, I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what was going on. Like,
And there's literally 8 to 9 different people around this tiny little bed. And it's like, it wasn't something I had much interest. I'm not even claustrophobic, but in that moment, it's like, I don't want to be around that many people. And plus, you don't want to get in anybody's way. Like, heaven forbid, in this life-threatening situation, this baby who is born crazy premature. So
well, and so before we continue, I'm going to go back and share my perspective of the when all the nurses rushed in. So literally, we're just doing the same old song and dance, flipping me over every time his heart rate drops. Someone comes in, we do it, and then it's like it felt like okay. And then the next time it happened, 5 to 6 people rush in, and one of our nurses, the one who had primarily been working with us or in our room, I just remember her over top of me saying, "All right, things are moving faster now. Things are going to move really fast now." And that's when I have people putting the hospital band on me and getting a different IV stuff in me, and 4 or 5 people around me, and they put an oxygen mask on me. And at that point, I just like I start immediately shaking, and my eyes fill up with tears, my lips quivering, and like completely out of not in my control. Like my body's just like visceral response to like the fear of like this is happening. And because everyone rushed in, that's when Justin got pushed to the back of the room. So I not pushed, but like moved to the back of the room. And so I couldn't see him. And they're like, okay, you're gonna have us. They're like in my face, trying to make sure I understand what's about to go down. And they're like, you're gonna have a C-section now. Okay, we're gonna get your baby out. Like we've got to, things are moving. And I'm just like shaking and involuntarily crying. And I don't see Justin anywhere. So I was like, where's Justin? Is Justin here? And they're like, yeah, he's right here. And he was like in the back. And I was like, can he be in there? Like, can he be in the OR? And that's when they shared, if riders, heart rate is stable enough and we only need local, then yes. But if we need to do general anesthesia and put you completely under, then no. So I was like, okay. And literally just wheel me off and then into the OR. And I think it was like 10 or 12 people around, and that's how they do it, but I was spread out like Jesus, like arms, and across on both sides, people working on that, 2 or 3 or 4 people at my head, one just speaking encouraging words to me, one and saying, you got this, is you're gonna see your baby soon, this and that. And then another one telling me, what the anesthesiologist is doing, putting a different mask on me. And then someone saying like my legs are spread like in a froggy position as they're like, okay, we're going to insert a catheter now. And they do that, which was like probably the most horrible part of it. This is a dang catheter. And then they're like, okay, and now like basically you're going to be out soon. And then that was it. And then I woke up and talk about not having your birth plan work out, which again, we make plans and God laughs at them. But I'm like, not only do we not get that initial skin to skin and breastfeeding and delayed cord clamping and all the things, couldn't hold our baby for 72 hours because of potential complications it could cause. So anyway, I wanted to share my kind of take on that. But if you'll continue the story.
Yeah, that was hard because I knew your investment in that plan and not being able to have that plan. And I think, all the complications that can happen from a baby being born 26 weeks. And I think you've mentioned it, but when you'd asked the doctor in one of the earlier visits, what's viability? And he said 24 weeks. And throughout that, you're just like, we just got to get to 24 weeks. And I am like, no, we don't want to get to 20. We want to get past 24 weeks. And I said, I think he's going to be born around 36. And I was still late. You know,
Also, just want to insert a plug here too. Like, if, anyone who's listening to this who just cares to listen to this episode because you care about me or me and Justin or Ryder or just curiosity or whatever. But also if you're listening as like a someone who's thinking about getting pregnant or currently pregnant, like I just hope that this story doesn't instill more fear in you. If anything, again, like we're going to share what the doctor said some of the complications could have been, but it's also just if anything to reassure you moms out there that if you did have any complications with your pregnancies or like it more than likely was not you or something that you did. And that's something that I just thank God that I know the truth of the matter. I know where I stand in this, that I'm not blaming myself for things that happened outside of my control. So if anything, just like, you have to take your own precautions of what you feel comfortable doing while you're pregnant. And for some people, that is doing things like working out lighter or, changing up their routine or whatever. You have to do what you are comfortable with at the end of the day, but you also can't just like blame yourself if something happens for just any little thing.
yeah.
So anyway, I just
Well, I
wanted
mean,
to share that.
I ran into our doctor in the gym a couple of days earlier, and I told him about a few of the comments that people have made, which is a separate conversation. That like I don't even look at comments on your posts anymore because I don't need that stress. I did that early on and went to battle with some keyboard warriors, and I did not feel better, and I was only stressed. So I just don't look at the comments. If you tell me them, you tell me them. But I told him, hey, there's some tough people saying, he was born early because she lifted weights, and he was like, no, no, that's not it. That was definitely not the cause. But I think in general, it's it's been another reminder for us that you can have joy uh, and and sadness at the same time. And I say that because when we lost Kai, we were still help happy for other people that got
Mhm.
pregnant, that had successful pregnancies. And now more than ever, especially with how frequently I'm in and out of the hospital, the NICU ward is 6 feet from the labor and delivery, right? And labor and delivery is on the same floor. The mom floor is one above it. So all day I see families coming in and out. The dad is carrying the carrier for the car seat. They're getting to go home. The nurse is waiting with the mom, and like so that's so exciting, and I have nothing but joy for those, and we'll get there too.
Mhm.
So it's just been a reminder for another example reminder of just because we go through something challenging or hard doesn't mean we can't have joy or happiness for someone else.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
that's like my favorite saying right now is like grief and gratitude can share the same space. Like you can be sad or be grieving for yourself or something and still have gratitude or joy or sharing that for someone else. And then also like with for us, like we still grieve Kai. I've posted about this, but it's like just having Ryder, and we're so grateful. Like I can't even express beyond grateful that he made it Earthside with us, but it didn't replace our grief of losing Kai. That baby didn't replace him, so it's like it's just so crazy how those things can share the same space too.
Yeah, so, crying Ryder walked out, and
Oh, and
then
also speaking of that, so back to the story, sorry, with Ryder crying, everyone was shocked because he was so young at 26 weeks. Like the last thing to develop is their lungs. And so everyone was shocked that he was even able to let out the screaming cry that he did. So that was even just another like reassurance, breath of fresh air to hear our baby. Well, you heard it, I didn't, but to hear him cry or to know he's like, he's alive, he's screaming.
it's funny I hadn't thought about it. He cried more then than I've heard him at all in the 8 weeks. Like he's cried out, we've heard him cry in the NICU, but not longer than for 5, 10 seconds.
Mhm.
He was crying that whole walk, which maybe was the same amount of time, but um, they get him out, they get him into the bed, they transport him to what is his has been the same NICU room he still is in today. I'm talking to the doctor. He's being really great, but he told me, Megan is up in a room, waking up, recovering. And, he's like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a roller coaster. There's a lot of unknowns with a baby that's born. They were kind but straight, which I appreciate much more, than anything. And so I'm there, I'm seeing him. I can't believe how small he is. And then head back up and see you, and he's talking to you, and you're half drugged up. Uh,
Yeah, so the doctor, the NICU doctor that was talking to me when Justin got up there, I don't even remember 30% of this conversation. I was cross-eyed like while I was looking at him. Like I'm like, I know I must look crazy because I was still coming out of the anesthesia. But I appreciate the NICU doctor talking to us immediately because they just whisked my baby away from me, right? And then of course Justin is in his right mindset to actually be able to absorb, well, not completely right mindset, but not drugged up to be able to absorb the information. But the coolest thing happened too, and I'll let you continue. But that doctor talking with us about Ryder, he asked if he could pray with us in that moment, and literally with a room full of people, right? I don't remember
yeah,
what.
yeah. Well, the nurse. There was another nurse in there.
Okay, but
Yeah.
yeah, he literally just prays. I don't even remember what the prayer was. I remember it was wonderful, but
Mhm.
just over Ryder and his health and us as his parents. I don't know. I don't remember what else. It was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, come on. Like our Nick, the doctor who's going to be helping take care of our baby is praying with us right now. Like, come on, God. Like, so cool. So cool.
Yeah, I didn't have a bag. I never had a chance to pack a dad bag or a mom bag. So, obviously we went down and saw him, and we could only put our hands through the little the little bed vent, if you will, bed, for lack of
Well,
a.
first, I got what I don't even remember when my first time walking down or going down
It
was because
was
the first
it,
time I got to
you
see
got
him was
strolled
from my
up, right?
hospital bed, getting wheeled in there.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So after the surgery, they wheeled me into the his
Yeah,
NICU room in my hospital bed so I could see him. So I didn't get to touch him or anything or like reach my hand in there. I just got to look at him
yeah,
from my hospital bed.
yeah, yeah. Then I went home and had to get stuff. It's always fun trying to pick out what your wife will wear, even though there's not much to wear when you're in a hospital all day.
But yeah, but anyway, we didn't get because they're at high risk when they're born that young of brain bleeds. We did not get to hold him for 72 hours. So like I said, talk about not getting that golden hour skin to skin. We literally couldn't even hold our baby for 72 hours. So And then that experience, which I also posted a reel on social media about, which was a very touching moment for me for sure. Justin was recording, and I was the first one to get to hold him, and it's a whole production when they do that with him that small because of all the tubes they have. So it was just like such like unreal moment. I don't even know how to describe it. Like it was just so crazy having my baby placed on me on my chest. So that was like such a cool moment. I'm so glad we have that video. But would you share a little bit about, and we're also running out of time because I do have to go pump. I'm behind my pumping schedule. But would you share what Dr. Taylor shared as far as the like
Oh,
potential
yeah.
reasons of why this could have happened, or just his speculations?
Yeah, his speculation was that you had a placenta abruption,
Partial.
partial, which
Mhm.
means the placenta didn't completely detach from your uterus, but it had started it started to detach. And so it would explain why, depending on the side you were laying, even though even though let's say it was halfway detached, they don't know. It was it was laying flush with your uterus, so it wasn't it was like it didn't know that it was abrupted. And then if you were laying a certain different way, then it would start to pull away, and that's what was impacting his oxygen. Um, and so
But yeah, he was like, the doctor was like, we don't know. Like, we don't know if it's because of your bicornuate uterus that maybe caused that, or like maybe he was starting to grow out of room, or it was caused the placental abruption to start happening, and then the contractions, or maybe something caused the contractions to start happening, and then the placenta started to pull away from that. Like he was like, we just don't know. Like he's like, it's literally all speculation. And then he also told me that when he was in there getting Ryder out, was he was like, Ryder was growing in one side of your uterus, so in one horn, and completely in the one side. And then he's like, I couldn't even fit two fingers into the other side of your uterus. It was still that small. So like it's just crazy. Like I'm like, holy crap. First of all, I have to say like what a miracle babies are, because like so many things can go wrong. So many things have to go right. But I was like, wow, it's again like there's so many women who have this shaped uterus who don't even know it because they have perfectly uncomplicated pregnancies. So I also want to say that to a mom who maybe goes and finds out she has a heart-shaped uterus. This might not be your story. This is just our story, and we don't even know. We still don't know if that's what caused it or not. So it's all speculation.
yeah, and I remember when you told me in 2015 we were at the gym walking around the track that you had that heart-shaped uterus, and that it could lead to complications with getting pregnant, complications with miscarriages, complications with going to full term, and it may have been related to this, but it may not. And he even said, who knows, you could get pregnant again and go to 28 weeks. You could go to 30, you could go to 32. He's like, I don't know. I think that was also something like that was refreshing, is he didn't claim to know,
Mm,
and he didn't try to tell us something we would want to hear, because you obviously, going through this experience, you would want the doctor to say, yeah, well, very low chance of happening. You'll go full term, and create unrealistic or false expectations. So that was just another thing appreciated about this team.
yeah. And I'm like, for me, I totally appreciate how straightforward they've been with like, whether they know or don't know, like just with the information. But like in hearing that, him saying like, maybe the goal next time is for you to make it to 30 weeks or 32 weeks. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, that's so depressing. Cause I'm like, we start with a miscarriage and then we have a micro preemie. I'm like, no, if we do that again, I want a full term baby. I don't want to make it to 32 weeks. So like to me I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm like, we don't have to think about that right now. But also, it's just like you have to think too. I'm like, we had a DNC and then I had a C-section. I'm like, my uterus has already been through a lot. But these are the kind of things like we don't have to think about now. It's like in God's plan and God's timing. And so that's where like another thing, I want to leave this on like a very encouraging note where it's just like every step of the way, like God has just shown up through all of this. And whether you're someone listening to this as a person of faith or not, that is something that's been just very much a huge part of our story. And like he has just shown up in every way. And it's just so cool. And I'm like, I know he's going to use Ryder's story as a testimony, and he's going to be a testament of God's faithfulness through all of this for us. So I'm like so grateful. Even though, do I wish this was our story, like in Ryder's story? Like, no, of course not. But we all want the miracle, but we never want to need a miracle. So I'm like, his life is a true miracle. And I definitely don't take credit for noticing him not moving. I'm like, that's totally was God's prompting. Your prompting. Like, yes, I felt my body, but like, it's just his life truly is a miracle. If who knows, like we can't even, Justin and I both are like, we can't even think about the alternative. And I feel like this whole episode's, I should have put a trigger warning at the beginning of it, because there's so many women and so many moms I've talked with who have had, stillborns, all the way up till 39 weeks. It's awful. But that's what we like. We can hardly even let our brains go there of thinking, what if we hadn't gone in, and what would have the alternative been if we had waited even just a few more hours to go. So that's just where how fragile life can be. But anyway, I want to leave this on an encouraging note for everyone. So what else would you share, Justin, as like a lost dad or as a NICU dad? Anything else that like just that has been helpful for you, and or what you have shared with actually Justin while he's thinking on this has talked with multiple NICU dads that have come and gone. This is another thing where it can be a little depressing when you're the NICU family that sees all the other families come and go, and you stay and you're still there. We're all going on 60 days now at the time of recording this, but he'll probably be in there like close to 90 days, right? You think, or over that. We'll probably
Right.
hit our 100 mark. But anyway, so but Justin's talked with a lot of I would say a lot, several NICU dads who he's just seen in the hallways and stuff, and just given them, I don't know what you guys have talked about, but like words of encouragement or just shared a little bit. And two of them have actually stopped by our NICU room and left gift cards for Justin, just thanking him for his support. I'm like, how sweet. First of all, how sweet that they left gift cards. And also, again, just affirming my husband here, like what a sweet, supportive man and person you are to literally have enough of an impact on other NICU dads while you're currently going through it that they feel like they want to leave you a gift card. So I think that just speaks to who
Yeah.
you are too. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't want to be a part of the miscarriage tribe, but it is a strong, loving tribe. And I think with being a NICU parent, it's a different tribe. It's also a hard tribe. And so you know that everyone else is going through the same thing. Although to your point, there's plenty of newborns that are full term. They're only in there for a day or two, and then there's others like us who will be in there close to 100 days. There's a family in there that's been in there for 145 days. So, you just want to talk to one another, share stories, encourage each other. And so I'm just really grateful for the team that we have. I mean, there's a dietitian, there's a respiratory therapist, there's a nurse, there's a charge nurse, there's the NICU doctor, there's a social worker. I'm probably leaving somebody out, and they joke because they're the most expensive and best babysitters in the world, and they've been incredible. Our family, our friends back
mm,
home here at church have been incredible. We're just really
mm,
thankful
yeah.
that he's here. He is a miracle. We get to hold a miracle every day. It's not the plan, but it has been another reminder that someone else has a better plan for us than we have, and uh, that's the perspective that I think I choose to take. I think it's the one you choose to take, and we
Mm,
could be angry, we could be frustrated. Obviously, it's still sad to leave him every day, but
mhm.
he's there to come back to. We get another day with him, and yeah.
Yeah. And Justin touched on it or mentioned it already, but it's funny. The nurses are like, they encourage us to leave. Like, because they're like, we are literally the most qualified and most expensive babysitters you will ever have. So, like, you do not need to live here when you're when you're on a marathon like you are, you can't live here. It'll hurt your own health and you have to be able to show up for your baby. So it's funny. I have a friend who she had a baby in NICU for the Billy Rubin stuff for a couple days. And she said her and I talked after my experience in the NICU so far. And she's like, it's so funny hearing now, not like realizing families stay in there so much longer sometimes. She was like, because my baby only was going to have to be in there for a few days. So she's like, when I would walk past other NICU rooms and I would see a baby in there without their parents, a parent in there, I'd be like, oh my gosh, how are their parents not in there with them? And it's like when you're doing a sprint, like, yeah, you probably can stop your worlds for a couple days to have someone there all the time. But for us, it's a marathon. Like we can't pause our lives and our work and business and everything for months on end. Like we have to still do life. So anyway, the support from the NICU team, amazing to, again, like I said, to be able to leave Ryder in the care of someone that actually, a team that I just like wholeheartedly know is going to take the best care of him is such a huge relief. And again, I think totally ordained by God that we were in Utah when this happened to be at this specific NICU. Don't think that was coincidental. But then also like the support. So like also with so many people checking in, or I know postpartum depression and all the things are really real and so tangible, and they're even higher for NICU moms, the chances of you probably having some kind of postpartum depression. And I'm like, there's still time, there's still time to to see. But I'm like, I'm like, I'm really okay when people ask. I'm like, yes, do I have sadness or anxiety or things like that? Sometimes, like Justin mentioned, yes, because we have to leave our baby every day at the NICU. But I'm like, honestly, the couple of things like my faith and reliance on God, and then also the support from friends and family, and particularly my husband, like particularly you, like has been. I'm like, I know I would not be doing okay if I didn't. He's giving me a heart hands right now for anyone not watching. Um, but like, so anyway, I think one last thing I'll share, and then if you want to wrap it up, or if there's anything else you think of, Justin. But one last thing I would share, if you are going through something like this, your support system is so huge. If you don't have it, go find it, because that is something that I'm like, I know I would not be okay if I didn't have the support system that I and we do have. So yeah.
Yeah, no, all that incredibly just thankful and blessed. And it has been for sure a roller coaster these past 60 days. A lot of ups and downs. Stay tuned for a potential episode number two with J-Man.
Yeah, with J Man.
We've got
So
the
yeah,
crib
anyway,
open.
that's a whole other story. Yeah. Yeah, there's the crib if you're watching on YouTube. But yeah, my niece nicknamed Justin J Man, and then now he's upgraded to J Dad. So he's J Dad. And you guys also had requested, I put a poll out there way back, like, should I have Justin on the podcast? And everyone said yes, like exclamation points, yes. So here's your first episode with Justin. You'll have to leave a review.
My manager's been trying to get a hold of you. You just have been ducking his calls.
You'll have to leave a review, guys, if you want to have him back, or let me know if you don't. Give me the real feedback, the real critical feedback of Justin's interview. But anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Hardy, for coming on the show.